Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hour number 2, a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp sitting in the host chair for Hunt Palmer. He is busy being a new dad. Congratulations to Hunt and his wife. Going to touch base with Hunt after the show. We're going to find out if he's back tomorrow or Friday. I imagine it's going to be one of those two, but we'll keep you updated as we get updates from Mr. Palmer himself. Okay, right now I want to welcome in Matthew Brune with 1-3 Sports and the Bengal Tiger. Matthew, how are you this afternoon?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for doing this, even though Hunt is on the shelf for the time being. Okay, Matthew, I obviously want to pick your brain with LSU football a little bit, but want to start with basketball. Look, they wrapped up their regular season with obviously a disappointing loss against Texas A&M. That's kind of how LSU's entire seasons went, but look, they're set to take on Mississippi State in the SEC tournament. What are your thoughts here? Like, do the Tigers have a realistic chance of maybe pulling an upset?
I think they have a chance. I wouldn't pick it, but yeah. I think they're going in as around 8-point underdogs. Mississippi State's probably the worst draw you could get in this first round. I'd much rather would have played Vanderbilt, Texas, Arkansas, one of these other teams and playing on the first day. But they were competitive with Mississippi State early, and then they kind of fell apart. That was a road game for them, so they'll be able to play them on a neutral site. It's going to be hard without Victorious Miller and Corey Chess once again, who are both injured with foot or ankle injuries, and so they're down 7-8 rotation players on scholarship, and it's just not a great situation all around.
Look, we know that LSU said they're bringing Matt McMahon back for another year because, look, obviously fans have a certain opinion of Matt McMahon. I get it. They say they want to, put more towards NIL. How competitive can LSU be in basketball under Matt McMahon, in your opinion?
I think if they hit the transfer portal the way that they need to this offseason, I think that they could be a tournament team next year. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all. A 1-year turnaround is not out of the picture. We've seen Missouri do it. We've seen Vanderbilt do it. I think getting the right players in the transfer portal is absolutely pivotal, and I think they are investing enough to do that this year, this offseason. So now it's just about McMahon and the staff evaluating correctly, getting the right players in, and building them up from there. I think even fans that don't think he's good or think they should move on from him, I think you go back to the 2024 season and it's like, okay, they went 9-9 in conference with a subpar cast again, and I think most people would say that he can coach. Now it's the talent acquisition part of this that he really has to get right.
Matthew, you want to shift away a little bit from basketball, head into football. LSU kicked off spring practice on Saturday. This morning was actually the media's first availability. As far as spring goes, look, whether you're able to make it out there, whether you just hear things, reading reports, what is the biggest thing you want to keep your eye on during LSU spring practice?
Yeah, so I should be able to make it to most of them. I was there this morning. Obviously, today was just a 20-minute segment for the media to come out and give some video and stuff. We'll be able to see full practices twice, I think, this spring, Saturday being one of them. All that say, I think the offensive line is still, honestly, both lines of scrimmage is my biggest thing to watch this spring, to see some of the newcomers, to see on defense, what these defensive ends look like, how Kyle Williams is coaching the D tackles. And then on the offensive line, there's 11 players or 10 players that could, in theory, start or play for this team. So I really want to see how that shakes out on both sides. So I'll take the line of scrimmage.
What do you make of the additions? I mean, which transfer portal player, whether it's these talented receivers coming in, whether it's somebody on the defensive side of the ball, are there any transfers you think LSU fans need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think a lot of them, considering how much better this class is than the last couple of years, really, where they've kind of just been hit or miss and haven't been all in on the portal and stuff. This year they were all in on the portal, and I think you'll see that, especially on the perimeter. I think at receiver, Barion Brune from Kentucky is a speedster, a playmaker. as a kick returner and as a receiver. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma missed last year, but comes off of, a 2023 season where he had, I believe, it was around 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. So this is a wide receiver group that got a lot better with those two. And then on defense, I look on the perimeter as well in the secondary with Mansour Delaney from Virginia Tech at corner potentially, Jakeem Jackson from Florida at corner potentially, Tamarcus Cooley from NC State at safety. So those are just some of the names that I'm looking forward to seeing, I think, from the portal that should be starters or competing to start.
As far as the defensive back room goes, they did a great job, in my opinion, in the portal at the cornerback position. As far as safety goes, you bring in Tamarcus Cooley. Outside of him, though, it's kind of the same guys from a year ago. I mean, it looks like Cooley will likely lock down one of those spots. Who do you think? What do you think of that competition next to him? Who are you keeping an eye on at that safety spot?
Yeah, today it was Javian Toviano, who also played there in the bowl game as well. For those who don't know his past, he came out of high school as a safety, then went to nickel, and then went to corner, and there's just been kind of a do-it-all guy his first years at LSU. I think he's talented enough to start in the SEC, but he has to kind of put it together this year. So that's one at safety, and then we'll see. Jordan Gilbert was playing through some injury last year, and I know it's not really an excuse, but hopefully he can be better for them this season and contribute at the safety spot, whether he's starting or not.
What do you expect from Garrett Nussmeier entering year 2 as the starter?
I expect a lot from him. I think he is a Heisman candidate. I think he's a worthy Heisman candidate. I think he was the best quarterback in the SEC last year personally. Even through the interceptions, he was top 6 in the country in pass attempts. He, did everything for this offense behind an offensive line that was disappointing, a run game that could never do anything, and a receiver group that was subpar compared to expectations. So I hope that the improvements at receiver help. I believe they will. I think the run game should be better with the addition of Alex Atkins and Caden Durham in year 2, and then hopefully they can get the offensive line right. If that happens, I think this is the top 5 offense in the country.
As that running back room goes, I mean, look, you got Caden Durham, you have Caleb Jackson, who fans probably wanted to see a little bit more of a season ago. Obviously, Caden Durham will likely be your bell cow going into the season, but Harlem Berry and JT Lindsey are names to keep an eye on, especially Harlem Berry. He's going to be out there during the spring. I don't know how much you got to see of him today, but maybe what are your thoughts on Harlem Berry year 1?
I got to see a little bit of him just going through drills and stuff, and I've seen him the past 3 years at LSU camp, and every single time I'm just like, this guy, he just moves differently. And I understand he's not the biggest guy, 5'11", probably 180, but I just think you see a guy that moves the way that he does, and those don't grow on trees. That's where the comparisons to like Jamal Charles, to Reggie Bush, to all these great Jahmyr Gibbs, all these great players. That's where the comparisons come in. So we'll see how the jump goes from, the lowest division high school ball in Louisiana to the SEC. It might take him a little bit. He'll have to get bigger, but Harlem Berry, I think, is the second best running back in the room behind Caden Durham right now. And Caleb Jackson, like you said, will continue to work his way and get better from a disappointing year last year. A lot of people expected him to potentially even be a starter, and he was kind of disappointed. JT Lindsey will come in the summer, and he is a physical back that should be ready to contribute right away. So I think it's a good room, but I think a lot of it honestly hinges on Harlem Berry. If he can be that playmaker for them, you really round out the room well.
Matthew Brune joining us right now. Matthew, as far as Caleb Jackson goes, you just mentioned, and I agree, that Harlem Berry is probably the second best running back in that room right now. Look, if he beats out Caleb Jackson for that RB2 spot in the spring, and then you have JT Lindsey coming in the summer, what does the future of Caleb Jackson potentially look like at LSU?
Yeah, I think he was a transfer portal candidate in a lot of people's minds. It's like, okay, is he going to stick around after really not getting carries and getting passed up by Caden Durham in year 1? He really struggled to see the field, and then also when he was on the field, just struggled with vision and really breaking some of those runs to use his athleticism. So people wondered if he would transfer. He ends up sticking it out at least through spring. We'll never know if he leaves after the spring, maybe. But at this point, I think the big thing for him is development. Physically, he has the tools to be a power back. He has tools to be at the very least a short yardage back, like we saw from Josh Williams or Noah Kane back in the day. Like those type of guys, I think Caleb Jackson is honestly more talented than. Now it's just about for him putting it together and finding a role on this offense, which I think he can this year. He just needs some more development and some more, I think, awareness when he gets the ball.
Matthew, before I get you out of here, just one more for you. Look, a lot of people were disappointed last year, and I get it. You know, you went through the ugly 3-game skid. Now, you finished the season on a high note, but going into 2025, at least on paper, this might be Kelly's maybe most talented team at LSU. I mean, how much pressure is Kelly under this season?
Oh, he's under a ton. I'm missing the playoffs last year, especially with the format changing the way that it did, and being, outside of not even a top 4 or 5 team in the SEC. I think there's substantial pressure to get on. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat if they don't make the playoffs, but I think that's where the conversation starts, and that's where you don't want to be. In year 4, let's say they go 9-3 again and don't make the playoffs, or even worse, they go 8-4 and don't make the playoffs. Then you're talking about 9-3, 9-3, 8-4, 9-3. It's just not good enough for LSU. To be frank, this is LSU, and this is a program that should be competing for championships. At the very, very least, they should be making this new format in the playoffs every single year, or at least most years, under Brian Kelly and with the resources that they've divulged into it. So I'm interested to see how it goes. I think that it's a fascinating season, and I think we'll learn a lot about this team. Game 1 against Clemson right away. If they can win that, then they're in a good spot. If not, then we're in the same spot we were in last year with this team in terms of getting behind the 8 ball.
Matthew Brune with the Bengal Tiger and On 3 Sports. Matthew, thanks for hopping on with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That was Matthew Brune right there, breaking down a little LSU spring football. All right, when we get back, we're going to continue our talk with LSU. 24/7 Sports put out an article of the 12 fastest guys in college football that you need to keep an eye on, and an LSU Tiger made the list. I'll tell you why that's important and what that player could maybe mean for the purple and gold coming up this season. That's all coming up on the other side here on the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. They're the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state of Louisiana, and they're right here in Baton Rouge. I told y'all earlier this week, we were driving, my wife goes, "Oh, that's that car I really like. It's a Genesis." And she had no idea that I even do this. I was like, yeah, they're really nice. They're really, really nice. And you should know it too. You don't see a ton of Genesis on the road because it's fairly new to our city here. They've only been at that location for a year and a half, but go check it out. It's a luxury vehicle. It's a luxury experience to be a Genesis driver. That means 3 years of complimentary maintenance, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. It's a luxury experience at a reasonable price over at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single car that's on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. And all of them, every single model, from the entry level to the highest end, come with the same safety features. Safety is a priority for Genesis. Go check them out. Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. That's Genesis of Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Welcome back in. Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharper with you, filling in for Hunt Palmer. He'll be back either tomorrow or Friday. We'll get you an update on that when we know something as well. Teased it a little bit going into break there. 247 Sports recently, within the past few days, put out a list of their fastest players in college football. They put a list together of 12 names to keep an eye on, and they ranked them 12-1. We'll start at the bottom. Ryan Wingo, wide receiver for the University of Texas, is number 12. They talk about how his speed will help Arch Manning adjust to the SEC. And I get it. It's big for Texas to have a guy on this list because you saw Matthew Golden run a 4.28. That was the fastest time of any player at the NFL Combine at the wide receiver position. You also lose Isaiah Bond. He was a talented guy. So Ryan Wingo could step right in there, be a big-time weapon for Arch Manning early on. Nate Frazier at number 11, the Georgia running back. He's going to have to pick up a lot of the slack. Carson Beck's gone. They're breaking in Gunnar Stockton. They're going to lean on that running game a lot. I think Nate Frazier could potentially have a really big year at Georgia. Damani Jackson, the cornerback at Alabama, sitting there at number 10. At 9, it's Roderick Pleasance from Oregon. Look, we'll skip ahead a little bit. I mean, Ryan Williams at 7 from the University of Alabama. We know how talented of a player he is. At number 4, it's actually Zachariah Branch, the Georgia transfer wide receiver. We know him from USC. Look, I've kind of given my opinion multiple times on Zachariah Branch. I think he is a very fast player, obviously. So does 247. I think that he has potential to be a game changer. However, he hasn't done much at the college level. I mean, he's shown flashes, but I kind of think at this point in his career, he's a little bit overrated. He took a step back from year 1 to year 2 at USC as well. We'll see if he does better at Georgia. Look, he's in line to get a lot of targets because their receiving core is a little bit thin there. At number 3, they have Dylan Edwards from Kansas State, formerly of the Colorado Buffaloes. He was explosive last year at Kansas State, 2 years ago at Colorado. At number 2, it's Nicholas Harbor, the South Carolina wide receiver. LSU fans saw him a year ago when LSU went up there to Columbia. He is a game breaker. He caught a long ball in that game. He's done that throughout his entire career. I believe he's going to move into that true wide receiver 1 role for the Gamecocks this year. It's something that they hoped he would do since he came to South Carolina. This is his 3rd year in the program under Shane Beamer. We'll see what happens there. But at number 1 on this list, 247 Sports has LSU wide receiver Barion Brune. Look, it says that Brown hit 22.6 miles per hour last year during his kickoff return for a touchdown against Louisville. That was faster than any NFL player's recorded times during the 2023 season. For what it's worth, Brown was also slotted in 247's number 1 slot a year ago as their fastest player in college football. So he is there for the 2nd year in a row. They do mention that Barion Brown's production dropped last year at Kentucky. It did, but Kentucky's offense was really bad in 2024. I mean, in 2025 or 2023, he had 43 catches, 539 yards, and 4 touchdowns. In 24, it dropped. 29 catches, 361 yards, 3 touchdowns. Brock Vandagriff, first off, was in and out of the lineup with injuries, and even when he was in there, he was not very good. He did not live up to the hype transferring from Georgia. Kentucky fans expected a lot out of him this year. He never lived up to it. But also, Barion Brown's played with 3 different quarterbacks in his 3 years at Kentucky. In 2022, he was with Will Levis. In 23, it was Devin Leary. And then, of course, last year with Brock Vandagriff. Sure, Will Levis was a starter with the Tennessee Titans. We'll see what his NFL future holds. But as far as Devin Leary and Brock Vandagriff, that kind of leaves a lot to be desired at the quarterback position. And he was productive nonetheless. I mean, he averages 12.5 yards per catch. But it's really him in the return game, right? In a 3-year career at Kentucky, Barion Brown, 50 returns, 1,400 yards, 5 touchdowns, averaging 29.3 yards per return. That is explosive. He set the record. We talked about it. Kickoff returns. He has 5 of them in 3 years at Kentucky. But a 29.3 yard average is impressive. That shows his explosiveness. And I mention all of that because, look, reports are coming out. LSU started their spring practice on Saturday. The first media availability was today. LSU's been tweeting out some videos over the past few days, just some highlights, even though media hasn't been there yet. Garrett Nussmeier and Barion Brown apparently already have a really good connection. In some of the highlight tapes you've seen, there's been multiple deep balls where Garrett Nussmeier has found Barion Brown behind the DBs, and Brown's coming down with the catch. That's good for 2 reasons, and it impacts both of these players. Reason number 1 is Barion Brown did not have a quarterback even close to the talent that a Garrett Nussmeier is, whether it was Levis, Leary, or Vandagriff. In my opinion, Nussmeier is a significantly better quarterback than all 3 of those guys. But on the flip side of things, and more importantly to LSU, Garrett Nussmeier's got another deep ball weapon. All season long last year, until the end of the year, we were waiting for Garrett Nussmeier to connect on deep balls. So many people said, oh, well, Garrett Nussmeier can't throw the deep ball. Guys, he's got a big enough arm to do it. Matter of fact, coming into the season, most people probably would have said, oh, well, Garrett Nussmeier's best attribute might be his deep ball. He was never able to connect on it because Chris Hilton missed most of the season because of that injury. And even when he came back, he wasn't really fully healthy until the last few games of the season. You remember Kyle Parker before he went injured. It was the UCLA game. He hit Kyle Parker down the sidelines. It was an excellent throw, probably the most underrated throw Nussmeier made of the entire season. I'd put that in his top 5 passes he completed a year ago. He hits Kyle Parker, and you're like, okay, finally, can Kyle Parker be that deep threat for Garrett Nussmeier? It's going to open up the entire offense. The throwing lanes for Nuss across the middle aren't going to be quite as tight because defenses are going to have to respect LSU's ability to take the top off the defense. It's just going to spread everything out. Oh, Kyle Parker is going to be that guy. Kyle Parker goes down with an injury in the same game that he caught that long ball, and then you're kind of back to square one. You're still looking for that deep threat receiver. Look, Aaron Anderson certainly has speed on him, but Anderson played the majority in the slot last year. He wasn't really a deep ball guy. He was a guy that was maybe running, 15 to 20 yard routes, those crossers across the middle. I mean, that was kind of Aaron Anderson's role a year ago. It wasn't until Chris Hilton got fully healthy the last 2 games of the year. Let's look at what Garrett Nussmeier did the last few games of the year, the last 2 against Oklahoma and Baylor when Chris Hilton was fully healthy. Because we know Hilton had multiple touchdowns in those games. Garrett Nussmeier, the last 2 games of the season with a fully healthy Chris Hilton Jr. 590 yards, 6 touchdowns to just 1 interception, 70.7% completion percentage. That's in 2 games. And that was with just 1 deep threat in Chris Hilton Jr. Think about pairing Barion Brune and Chris Hilton Jr. together. Cassie just played the highlight. You saw Nussmeier connect with Barion Brune on that deep ball in practice. If that can translate to the game field, Garrett Nussmeier could sling it. I mean, he's got just as strong, if not a stronger arm than any quarterback in college football. And it was on display against Oklahoma and against Baylor when Hilton was out there. You pair Barion Brune next to him, you really got something working. But also, don't forget Kyle Parker. He is still on this team. Now, he's working his way back from injury. He'll, in all likelihood, be a little bit limited during the spring, but he's a guy that Nussmeier hit for that first deep ball against UCLA. Jelani Watkins redshirted a year ago because he was a little bit undersized. That's a guy coming into LSU who's a track guy. He's reportedly one of the faster guys on this team. Can he carve out a role as a deep threat? If he can, this entire offense opens up for Garrett Nussmeier. And some of the losses may not be as big. Like, obviously, Mason Taylor's a huge loss. But we've talked about it a number of times. Bauer Sharp comes in. I think he's going to be a solid tight end. You have Donovan Green from Texas A&M. Trey'Dez Green is a freak, whether he lines up out wide or at tight end. Either way, he's going to make an impact. You still have Aaron Anderson in the slot. You still have Xavier Thomas who can catch balls across the middle. And let's not forget about Nick Anderson at 6'5", who you didn't have anybody like that a year ago. He's 6'5", around 220 pounds. Your biggest receiver last year was probably Kyron Lacey at 6'2", 215. Maybe 6'3". You had nobody the stature of a Nick Anderson. Now, Anderson coming off of injury, but he missed the entirety of last season. He got hurt in game 1 for Oklahoma. If he can come back fully healthy, that just opens up so much, and it gives Garrett Nussmeier so many options. If you can shore up the offensive line in front of a Garrett Nussmeier, having a Chris Hilton Jr. and the newcomer Barion Brune in that offense could do wonders for a quarterback. This is one of the reasons I expect Garrett Nussmeier to have a big year. I'll go back to the numbers of the last 2 games. In 2 games, 590 yards, 6 touchdowns, just 1 interception, 70.7% completion percentage. Garrett Nussmeier was a completely different quarterback when Chris Hilton was fully healthy and he was able to hit the deep balls in this LSU offense. Now he's got multiple weapons that can hopefully do that for him here in 2025 with his second year under Joe Sloan, his second year as a starting quarterback in the SEC. That's why if he can get that connection going with Barion Brune and pick up where he left off with Chris Hilton Jr., I think Garrett Nussmeier is in for a big season in Baton Rouge. All right, look, we're going to take a quick timeout. When we get back, LSU baseball and LSU softball both played last night, and they were both dominant. We'll recap those games and what it means for both teams as they enter SEC play this weekend. That's coming up here on the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I took a page out of your favorite book. You saw me lies just by the way you look. I dug my grave watching you. Where you
Welcome back in Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Beck, we were vibing with this bump music. Who picked this song?
I don't know, actually. Just kind of random. I just searched songs on YouTube, and this one came up.
Well, you have great taste in music. I just want to let you know.
All right,
I
thanks.
couldn't have picked it better myself if I had picked the bump music. So excellent choice there. It's almost like you read my mind. All right, guys, want to talk a little LSU baseball right now. God, I kind of want to just keep this on. All right, focus, Taylor. LSU baseball. They played last night as well as the LSU softball team. Both games went about identical. Both teams put up 6 runs in the first inning, and both teams run rule their opponent. LSU gets the big victory over Xavier, and your LSU softball team shuts out ULL 14-0. We'll get into that game a little bit later. I want to start here with LSU baseball. Look, I mentioned they blew the doors off of Xavier. Right, the Musketeers looked like they didn't even belong on the same field. It was 17-0 after the first 3 innings. 6-0 after the first, 17-0 after 3. The game was short-lived. It was not very competitive. But a few things I wanted to look at. One, LSU threw a lot of different pitchers, and all of them performed well. William Schmidt got the start. He only went 1 inning. He struck out a guy, didn't allow any runs. Jaden Newt pitched the next 2. He walked 2 batters, but he did strike out 4. Connor Ware, we saw him in that disastrous start against North Dakota State last Tuesday night. He came in, he threw 2/3 of an inning. He gave up 2 runs. Connor Ware is really struggling right now. But Maverick Rizzi comes in, an inning and a third, didn't give up any runs. Jacob Myers, an inning, didn't give up any runs. Kason Evans, once again, closed out the game. Kason Evans right now has a .90 ERA. He is your closer on this team. We talked with Koki Riley earlier. I know that when Gavin Guidry comes back from injury, he's going to have a role, and he's going to be a guy you have to count on out of the bullpen. Kason Evans is your closer until he proves he can't handle it. Few major takeaways. I think the outfield battle and the DH battle is officially over. Look, you're going to have Derek Curiel in left field. I think he's going to be great there. Chris Stanfield in center. The battle we were kind of looking at coming into the season was who's going to be DH and what about that right field spot? Because really it was Jake Brown, Josh Pearson, Ashton Larson, and some younger guys kind of all battling for that spot. I think it's settled. I think you go Josh Pearson, DH, Jake Brown in right field. I think that both of those guys are hitting the ball well enough. I mean, Jake Brown last night goes 3 for 3. He scores 2 runs. I mean, he was great. He had 3 RBIs. He's batting .391 on the season right now. Josh Pearson, 2 for 2, 3 runs, had an RBI, .351 on the year, and we know the power that Josh Pearson has in his bat. Both of those guys have to be in your everyday lineup. Look, I like Ashton Larson. I think he's going to still have a role on this team, and he was great down the stretch a year ago. But Jake Brown and Josh Pearson right now are playing too good to not have them in the lineup. Pearson DH, Jake Brown right field. You can actually flip it if you need to, but those guys have to be in the lineup somewhere. It's not like Ashton Larson's playing bad. He's batting .250 right now. He went 1 for 2 last night. It's just Josh Pearson and Jake Brown are tearing the cover off the ball. You can't take them out of the lineup and get them out of that rhythm. Also, Tanner Reeves has to get the start at third base to begin SEC play. I think he's earned that. He's been excellent. He's hit multiple home runs in the last 4 games. He had a grand slam last night to really open things up for LSU offensively. He's been great. I mean, Tanner Reeves last night, 3 for 4, 2 runs scored. He had 4 RBIs. He's batting .333 on the season. Look, Michael Braswell is still going to have a role on this team. He's a veteran. He's been in the SEC for a number of years now. But Tanner Reeves, a lot like a Jake Brown and a Josh Pearson, is just too hot at the plate right now to justify taking him out of there. You're going to give up a little bit defensively for Tanner Reeves than you would with Michael Braswell, but I think the offense more than makes up for it right now. Sure, Braswell's struggling at the plate, but he struggled at the plate to begin last year. It wasn't really until SEC play that Braswell got it going, and really the back half of SEC play, he was one of the top 3 hitters on your team. And he was a guy that was leading off for you for certain points of the season last year. If Tanner Reeves starts to struggle, if the bat slows down, if he makes some errors at third base, Braswell's there. He's a veteran. You can slide him right in. He's not hitting the ball well enough. You look at Michael Braswell on the season right now, Braswell's batting 182. That's just not good enough. And with Tanner Reeves, I mentioned batting over 330, you have to keep him in the lineup. But watch out for Michael Braswell. We have not seen the last of Michael Braswell. He will have a role on this team. I believe that. Whether it's pinch hitting, pinch running, Tanner Reeves struggles. He's a young player. You put the veteran back in. We'll see. Braswell is still important to this team. I just don't think you can start him right now going into SEC play. I think Tanner Reeves has earned that job. Also, me and Koki talked about it a little bit in hour number 1. I believe that as far as your weekend rotation goes of starting pitchers, you are in a better position this year than you ever have been under Jay Johnson. Look, even in 2023, you had a Paul Skeens, you had a Ty Floyd. Your third spot was still up in the air. You wanted it to be Thatcher Hurd. A couple guys went in and out of there because of injuries. At the end of the year, Hurd started to pick it up, but it was kind of a struggle for most of the year. At least heading into SEC play, you didn't really know who was going to be that number 3. Right now, with Cade Anderson, Anthony Ianson, and Chase Shores, you have your 1, 2, and 3. No question about it. Anderson has been dominant. He looks like one of the best pitchers in the SEC. Anthony Ianson, while allowing some base runners, has gotten out of multiple jams, showed that he can keep his composure on the mound, had 15 strikeouts on Saturday. And then we know the potential of Chase Shores. We've seen him be dominant at times. I really like this team's potential going into SEC play. Look, I think this team has a shot to sweep this weekend. I don't know if they will, but they have a shot. Missouri's not a very good baseball team right now, but you're still entering SEC play. I'm excited to see it. As far as the catcher position, I think that's over. I think it's Luis Hernandez. Cade Arambete's, he's going to be needed. You'll probably need him at some point this year, but look, until proven otherwise, Hernandez is your most complete guy. He's always been the most consistent behind the dish. He's also hitting the ball well. He's batting around 270 right now. If he can do that for the entire year, you're good. Because you could put him near Stanfield. If he can get on base an average amount of time, Stanfield's a good enough batter with a good enough speed. He can turn everything over to the top of your lineup with Curiel, Jones, and Dickinson, which I think might be the best 1, 2, 3 in the SEC. So I'm excited. Again, they blow out Xavier last night. They will take on the Missouri Tigers to begin SEC play. Before we take a timeout, we got a few more minutes. I want to mention LSU softball. They take down the ULL Raging Cajuns last night, 14-0 in a run rule. Jaden Heavner was on the mound, improved to 7-1. She threw all 5 innings. She had 6 strikeouts, only allowed 1 hit. She did give up 4 walks, but none of them did any damage because they were able to throw that shutout. We were talking about it a little bit on the morning show. It's kind of run-of-the-mill for Jaden Heavner right now. I mean, anytime you see a pitcher go a complete game, 1 hit shutout, you're blown away. But we've seen it from Jaden Heavner. I mean, that's kind of the norm right now, right? She's thrown the no-hitter. She's done things like this multiple times already in her young career. This is the 4th consecutive game that LSU has scored 10 or more runs in 5-inning run rule victories. They have 14 double-digit hit games, 11 RBIs just on Tuesday night, and it was everybody. Danica Coffey at leadoff. She was 2 for 2, had 2 RBIs. Mackenzie Rudity was 3 for 3. Tori Edwards 2 for 3, hit a home run in the 4th inning. She had 2 RBIs. She scored 2 runs. Just like the LSU baseball team, they came out swinging. They scored 6 runs in the top of the 1st inning. Look, I don't know where this team is going to go, what they're going to do for the remainder of the season. But here's what I do know. Right now, this team is solid top to bottom. You have a good mix of young players with veteran talent. And then Sierra Daniel has found a hole at second. If you remember a year ago, LSU was dominant before SEC play. Danica Coffey goes down with an injury. After that, you really struggled at third base. You had to throw a freshman Sierra Daniel in there maybe before she was ready. You went Maddox McKee. You went Madison Manning. It was kind of a turnstile there at a very important position like third base. Sierra Daniels found a home at second. She looks good there defensively. She's tearing the cover off the ball right now. And you have Danica Coffey, who's been in this program for a number of years, as your leadoff batter at the hot corner at third, where you want her, where you wish you would have had her a year ago. And also, thanks to a player like Jaden Heavner, you're much better on the mound than you were a year ago. Because Sydney Berzon was great. She's great this year. But last year, outside of Sydney Berzon, it was kind of hit or miss what you were going to get on the mound. This year, you have Hefner, you have Berzon, and then whether it's Emily Casanova, Ashley Vallejo, all of them have looked really good. You have good hitting top to bottom in this lineup. You have dominant starting pitching. And it's a team that, frankly, doesn't make a lot of errors. Now, things could always change going into SEC play, but right now I really love Beth Torina's squad. We'll see what they do. I mentioned that the LSU baseball team will open SEC play on a 3-game series starting Friday against Missouri. LSU, the softball team, will do the same thing. They open at home against number 23 Kentucky this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday game as well. We'll keep an eye on baseball, softball. We'll see what both those teams do on the diamond. All right, we're going to take a timeout. When we get back, we're closing this thing out like we do every day with some Take It or Leave It.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com is the website. Mitchell Fisher and his local team are fantastic to work with, and they do a number of things. I talk to you about security systems all the time. They handled ours. If you're looking to get a security system at your business or at your home that's complete with all the cameras, the apps, everything that's got you set up at the top of a button, they can do that for you. They can also help you out with your outdoor entertainment space. If this is the time of year where you love to get out back when it's a little bit cooler, light the fire, listen to some tunes, or watch TV in the outdoor area, Mitchell Fisher and his team at Audio Video Security Solutions can help you out with all of that. They can supply the television. They can supply all of the equipment. Their install at the Palmer House was just painless and easy, and the customer service afterward has been great. They can do simple things like I talked about mounting the television. They can also do complex things as well. So give them a call or just check them out online, avssla.com. It's Audio Video Security Solutions.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Join us at the Louisiana Outdoor Expo at the Lamar Dixon Expo Center this weekend, March 14th through the 16th. Head over to the front or back booth and register for your chance to win a U10 new canoe, a compact, versatile kayak perfect for fishing and hunting adventures. Visit 1045ESPN.com for details. Also, register for our bracket challenge. The VEX European Bracket Challenge is now open. You can start registering at 1045ESPN.com right this moment, and then be sure to come back and get your picks in after the first games are announced this selection Sunday. The person with the most accurate picks for this year will win $1,000 in cash.
Welcome back in. The final segment of a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp here with you. Back, let's close it out like we do every day with some Take It or Leave It.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
Alrighty, first one here. The Cowboys signed former Saint legend, defensive end Peyton Turner. Take it or leave it.
That's former first-round pick Peyton Turner. Let's show a little bit of respect.
I said legend. Saints legend, okay? I think that's more respect.
He's a legend because he'll be remembered as one of the biggest busts in Saints history. Yep. I'm leaving this, guys. Leave
it alone.
It's not the fact that, you signed Peyton Turner. Okay, look, the guy was going to get a shot somewhere else. We know this. And it's not like you paid a ton of money for him. I mean, I think you're paying him $4 million this year, maybe $3.5. It's a one-year deal. That's fine. My bigger issue is, first off, Jerry Jones. Geez, you got my blood boiling. Jerry Jones last year said, we're going to go all in on this season. Well, you didn't, because the only free agent you signed a year ago was Eric Kendricks. Now, he worked out, but that's not going all in. This year, he probably thinks it's cool and hip to, be all secretive, saying we're going to be selectively aggressive. I don't think you're selectively aggressive going after a guy like Peyton Turner. Also, I was okay with you letting go of Rico Dowdle at running back because I thought he was kind of average. You replaced him with Javonte Williams, who is the spitting image of Rico Dowdle, so you didn't really improve in that area. I don't really know what they're doing. He freed up all this cap space restructuring Dak and CeeDee Lamb, but he's not really doing anything with it. Here's something shocking, Beck. The Cowboys have not signed a free agent with a contract $6 million or more since Greg Hardy in 2015.
Oh, my. Greg Hardy.
The next closest team is the Chargers in 2022. So there's a 7-year gap. The Cowboys refuse to spend money in free agency. The only thing they've done is they've actually drafted okay, which is why they're able to stay above water, at least in the regular season. But they're never aggressive in free agency. And now he's like, I'm going to be selectively aggressive. Whatever, Jerry. Get out of here. I'm done with it.
All right, next one. The 49ers Super Bowl window is officially closed. Take it or leave it.
I don't know if it's officially closed. It's going to be a lot harder there. I'm taking it.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Look, they have lost Deebo Samuel via trade. Hufanga signed with the Broncos. Dre Greenlaw just signed. All of these guys are moving on, and you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy a whole lot of money. I like Brock Purdy more than most people. I think Brock Purdy is right there in the top 12 quarterback conversation. I think he's on the lower end of it, but I think he's right there in the top 12 quarterback conversation. The reality is, though, you have been so blessed and privileged to be able to play with all of these talented guys on a 7th-round rookie quarterback deal. You're no longer going to have that. This deal for Brock Purdy is going to be in excess of $50 million a year in all likelihood. The only key free agent they've signed is Demarcus Robinson at wide receiver. You still have Ayuk, but he's perpetually hurt. Juwan Johnson might be your best, most proven receiver. Ricky Pearsall showed flashes as a rookie, but you also moved on from 2 starting offensive linemen. You signed a backup tight end for George Kittle. That's really all you've done. McCaffrey's hurt. You re-signed Jordan Mason. That didn't really move the needle for me. I mean, I think Shanahan's a good coach. I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback, but we're going to find out just how good because all of their talent from these Super Bowl teams are gone. That's the importance of winning. They've gotten there twice, but they went 0 for 2. You have to win because at some point you're going to have to pay your quarterback and move on from these guys. We talk about it all the time with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. Can he even get back there? He was on that rookie deal the first time they went to the Super Bowl. They didn't build the proper roster around him. Now he's making a ton of money, and you're not able to fill the needs elsewhere. The 49ers are in the same boat right now. It's going to be difficult for them to get back there.
All right, last one here. LSU baseball will sweep Missouri this weekend. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to take it.
I'll take it.
They don't necessarily have to. Look, it's the opening weekend of SEC. There's still a lot of ball to play in front of you, but I think they're going to. I think that by all accounts, Missouri is the worst team in the SEC, at least heading into SEC play. They have struggled a lot more than most people thought they would out of conference. I think that the LSU has a chance to do it. We just talked last segment about their talent in the starting rotation, right? Cade Anderson, Anthony Irons, and Chase Shores. That's just their starters. Kason Evans has been great. Gavin Guidry is going to come back at some point. It probably won't be this weekend, but he's going to come back at some point. Connor Bench has been good out of the bullpen. Maverick Rizzi's been good out of the bullpen. DJ Primo's been good out of the bullpen. And that's just your pitching staff. Look at your hitters, top to bottom. We were talking about it with Koki earlier. I just talked about it last segment. 1 through 9 right now, you feel really good about. I mean, you're so deep right now in the field that Michael Braswell, Ashton Larson may not be in your starting lineup. They're struggling to find playing time. They were staples on your team a year ago. That's how deep and how talented this LSU team is. So I think they're going to sweep. I don't think they have to, but I would really like to see it. That would get SEC play started off on the right foot. All right, that's going to do it for a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. When we get back tomorrow, it may be me, it may be Hunt. I'll actually find out here in just a few minutes. We're going to continue to talk New Orleans Saints as Luke Johnson's hopping on LSU football on the practice field. There's been some reports from the media portion viewing of that. And obviously, we're going to talk some LSU baseball as well. That's coming up on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Matt Moscona's next, 3 to 6.
The Hunt Palmer Show.